Welcome to She Blaze, where we're bringing you cannabis culture from a woman's point of view. And as always, here to elevate the cannabis industry. I'm one of your hosts, Ice Dawson, cannabis socialite.
And I am Dasheeda Dawson, the weed head.
Hi, sis.
Hey, sis. Hey, sis.
Hey, sis.
On today's episode of She Blaze, Massachusetts inflation will rock their industry. Oklahoma regulators are confused. And did Trulieve just make a power move? Let's talk about it.
Well, of course, before we get into that, I've got to get into my high of the week. And I'm really excited to talk about my high of the week because it's none other than Late Bloomers NYC, a legal cannabis dispensary in New York City in the Ridgewood area, which is still Brooklyn, but very close to Queens. Shout out to Fernando Pena and his wife Sue, who are also members of Card Inc. They're founding board members and one of the first licensees to be opened in the state and in the city of New York. They have a great assortment. It's always very family friendly as well. And Ridgewood actually had a few things popping in the area. It was like a nice little neighborhood walk around for restaurants as well as your local cannabis dispensary like Late Bloomers NYC. So shout out to them.
Okay, well, shout out. I love me a good dispensary. And I don't really know much about Ridgewood area going out. So now go to your cannabis dispensary and go to a restaurant.
Yes, at least a restaurant. There's other things there, I think, too.
Okay, true. All right. Well, my high of the week, as you know, I love to bring cannabis products.
Yes.
And so this cannabis product is Papa in Berkeley. Now, I know you guys have probably heard of this brand before, as it is a West Coast brand. Well, baby, it done made its way all the way to the East Coast because it is in our dispensaries.
Mm-hmm.
And this particular product is a THC tincture. It is whole plant, full spectrum, which Dasheeda always talks about how she loves it. And I try to explain it to people. It's like what your body really needs as medicine sometimes is whole plant versus what we get with isolated THC is keeping the party rocking. And so this is to help you. It is a tincture. You could take it throughout the day. It is for relief. So if you have any autoimmune issues or are arthritis, this is a perfect dropper to get you through the day. It's also a dropper, so you could regulate how much you take. It's 1,000 milligrams, which we know is a lot in any market because a lot of times it's a lot of THC caps.
Yes.
So yes, grab you one.
1,000 milligrams is a lot, especially in one package. Typically, an edible will be only up to 100 milligrams, and it'll be separated by 10. So this is a rarity, but I think it's because it's in a tincture form. So it's also one of those things you want to be careful with it, because if it is opened by accident and ingested by an animal or a young person, it could create a very high moment for them as well. So I love a tincture, though. It's under the tongue moves faster than in a drink or as an edible. You have to still go through the digestive system. But yes, okay, Papa and Barkley making its way to be on the East Coast.
Well, we will have some upcoming episodes after our break. We're taking a break on Juneteenth. Hello, weekend. We Black, we celebrating, we American Black. And so, when we come back, we'll definitely have a couple episodes where we're talking about delivery methods, because I just think people are not educated on delivery methods, natural amounts of THC, full spectrum versus isolated cannabinoids, and how it affects you in different ways. I'm so excited about that. Products are one of my favorite things I geek about. And that's the joys of having a legal market, is we can talk about products and different ways to consume. Like, baby, I do more than smoke.
Yes, definitely. And this is a good time to plug the State of Flower Tour, where we're going to be going across 10 different states that have different legal markets. And yeah, I can't wait to do She Blaze on the road, because then I will absolutely be looking at what do we have in some of these markets. Shout out to Massachusetts and even Connecticut, adult use markets, New Jersey, Maryland. There is even Delaware on the way to Maryland. Like, what can we find? All of that is adult use, 21 and over. And so it gives us an opportunity to check out what the East Coast got. We throw in there Vegas and Florida. We're trying to see what does the largest medical cannabis economy in the country look like. Very eager to see that as well. And then, of course, Vegas is adult use. So I am excited about what we've got going on in the summer, but there are a lot of moves that are being made, and I know you are clocking all of the tea. Ice, where do we start with our hot topics?
Child, let's keep it on the East Coast, okay? And let's start off with some good news, I guess.
Okay.
So, Massachusetts last year, they made some claims about how they wanted to get their industry in check. And one of the claims cannabis regulators from that area really wanted to do was understand their THC potency and what is actually being reported on the product versus what people are actually getting. So their Cannabis Control Commission announced that they're going to do some audits of your product, boo, and they're going to test and see if the THC potency matches the actual product. Now,
Right.
why is this really important? As somebody that we all have operated and worked within the dispensaries, we're always out in the communities, and they're always like, bro, I want the highest THC, give me the 30%. And we like, I don't know if that's what that is, but it says it on the package, so you have to give it to them. And some states have compound that, like New York, with pricing based on your THC level. The actual producers, processors of the product pricing you and taxing you based on that. But other states that remained unchecked, but however, you must still put THC potency levels on there. Well, the CCC said the potency they check, it needs to be within 75% or 125% of the THC potency on the product level. And so I'm very curious on what that means and if what happens when they don't meet the level. So take it away, Dasheeda.
Well, first of all, this is an audit, which means they're not going to pull everything. They're doing batch testing. It's the same way when you think about the IRS audit, they don't audit everyone, but there are some flags or triggers that could start an audit or at least put shine a light. Consumer complaints is a perfect example, or even retailer complaints about their vendors not necessarily having what they say is on the packaging inside of it. But when you talk about the percentage difference, we're talking about variance difference, and they are giving a pretty wide variance. And the reason is because heat and various other things can change THC levels or cannabinoid levels quite significantly. But very still small. So if you look at just what the variance is allowable in Massachusetts, if a label says it has 15% THC, then that means the test results must fall between 11.25% and 18.75%. That is a significant difference. That's like between 3 to 4 percentage points. And I kind of feel like, yes, when something goes awry with your THC while you're growing it and maybe you get more or whatever, it might be just a couple of percentage points. I'm not sure how broadly, but I think this was informed by the cultivators. They want to have as much flexibility. What that means as a consumer is you need to be thinking about how you consume. You should still go slow, and it should still be the goal to start low. It should still be the goal to see what else is in the package. Here we're focused on THC, almost hyper focused, but there are other things that are important that help contribute to what you feel during the time that you use it. One thing I'll just lastly say is that if it was the case that it tested at say 4% or even 10% and label said 5%, it would be out of compliance and could be pulled from the stores until the problem is fixed. And I think fixing the problem is retesting your batches and probably relabeling at that point with the correct percentage.
Honestly, as a consumer, I would think that flour would be the product that's most affected flour and pre-rolls, which is technically flour, people,
Yes, it is.
especially when it's non-infused, gotta put that
Mhm.
out there. For me, I feel like as a concentrate or edibles, especially edibles, if you're isolating the THC, you better get it on the money every time, because
Yes,
what's the point of isolating the THC? It's not full spectrum. Full
right.
spectrum, it's hard to regulate THC, but isolated THC, you should be doing your sciencing.
It's all science, and you're absolutely right. When you are in an isolate or distillate, which means that you have isolated just a specific cannabinoid, you're talking about formulation. And as a molecular biologist, I feel like formulation is not like kind of sort of H2O. Kind of sort of H2O is hydrogen peroxide. Okay, so we can't work with that, and that's not what we're expecting. So I do agree. This is more for where flour has been really inflated. We saw a recall happen in New York at some point when this was still a medical market because operators were inflating their THC. This is ultimately why the adult use market in New York came with a THC percentage tax, which has been adjusted through some lobbying from the cultivator side of things, because I don't think they realized how the tax would translate to pricing ultimately at the end for the customer, the consumer. But I do think the tax does prevent people from playing themselves with trying to say, oh, my indoor flower got 38%. Like, and first of all, not only do I not believe that, but the next thing is, so what? Is it going to make my experience better? What those terpenes looking like? Because I like to taste my flower. As soon as I put it to my lips for a pull, I'm pulling straight from a pipe or a bong. Yeah, if the terpenes is not there, it's not going to taste well. And so, yeah, I think I agree with you. Concentrates and edibles should be a lot more on the money. You've already extracted out, just really focus on cannabinoids. Now it is almost an exact science. Does a variant still happen over time, depending on how long something has been on the shelf? Sure. But once it's in an edible or in a manufactured state, very, very limited, because we still are making things with preservatives and things to kind of hold the state, hold the formulation, right? Same thing with concentrates and why we want to keep them refrigerated and the like. It's like about keeping it all around kind of at the level that it was when it was actually harvested. Flour takes a different thing. Over time, Delta 9 THC starts to degrade into CBN and Delta 8 THC over time, more CBN than the Delta 8, so know about it because you could smell it actually. You can smell when you got old weed, because it does have a slightly different scent as well. And that's more the terpenes, of course. I'm joking. But the truth of the matter is, like, over time, flour will have, a natural degradation process. And so the longer something's on the shelf, odds are it's decreased its THC percentage, and odds are it is likely not going to be as compliant, which is why it needs to be taken off the shelf at that point or put on clearance or whatever the process is for that particular state.
We need to clip that and put that on a shirt, because you can smell old weed is a real statement,
For facts.
especially when everybody swear they got the Cali pack. It's like, okay, well, this Cali pack from 15 years ago. Good
Yes,
luck.
that was Thailand. I hate to say it. I went to so many dispensaries, pretty coffee. You could sit down, you could work. And unfortunately, the flour they were showing, they were so expensive because it is all on per gram and so old. It was just bad. Now, if you got it straight from a cultivator, whole different level. But the dispensaries themselves and the people who worked there, they didn't know any better. And the people who were buying, tourists, largely from European countries. So that's, I'll just leave it at that.
Well, the whites definitely get
He's like,
it.
give me your best flour. And he went straight to the driest, oldest smelling thing. And it was like 800 baht. And that is a lot if you think about it. Like, that's almost $30 a gram. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, we not paying $30 a gram. I don't care how good your flour is, baby. I'll put a seed in the ground and watch it sprout.
I mean, I'd rather smoke that. It's like $30 a gram, not an eighth, a gram. So yeah, we have a lot of different markets that we are seeing different knowledge of understanding of just the again the chemical makeup or profile of the plant itself, so that we know what to look at. I'm happy CCC is trying to keep some of this stuff in check. An audit will keep some folks in check, but there's always going to be people who think that they could beat the audit. It is what it is.
You already know. Well, guess what, you guys? If you like what you're hearing, make sure you're liking and sharing our video because we want to keep the people informed, okay? Put us on all of the social media platforms. Share this to Facebook, share this to Instagram, share us everywhere. And make sure you're subscribed to the We Had Company YouTube because we go live every Saturday, somewhere around 2 to 3 ish. And follow us on she_Blaze. Yes. Well, since we was talking about the Watts, let's
Yes.
hurry up and get into Oklahoma hot topic number 2 because they doing some cray over there, honey.
Oh
Child.
my goodness. Well,
Well,
Oklahoma's always been a little crazy.
Well, yes. So the Wild Wild West, if you don't know, let us inform you. Oklahoma was one of the easiest markets to get a medical marijuana license. They actually since put a freeze on it because they feel overwhelmed with the amount of licenses that they were giving, whether it was process, distributor, cultivation, or retail dispensary, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because they call it dispensary. We're New Yorkers, so of course we call everything a retail. But basically, their medical marijuana market, because that's the only type of market they have, they don't know if they listening to the Oklahoma Medical Marijuana Authority or the Oklahoma Bureau of Narcotics Dangerous Drugs Control because there are so many leaders telling the licensees what to do. Now the bureau done came out, the narcotics bureau done came out on May 8th and told the licensees, hey, because we have all this medical marijuana reschedule, y'all gonna have to hurry up and file with the DEA to be in compliant with your license that was given to you by the marijuana authority people of Oklahoma. And if you don't do that by January 1st of 2027, you out of compliance. That's what they told the people.
Mm-hmm.
Now, me, I would have been like, okay, well, who are you and why are you telling me I'm out of compliance? Because I ain't never heard of y'all. I'm legally licensed, right? Well, it is a dangerous situation out there because their authority, their marijuana authority board was just like, no, that's not what we said. So now there's a bunch of confusion for the regulators. They have no idea what's going on and who to listen to.
Well, I definitely think the regulators are confused, and that's making the licensees even more confused. You bust down the ballistics of that situation quite well. For people who might be questioning how many licenses are in the Oklahoma market, last I checked, there were over 8,000 licenses in the market. Last I checked, because it was so easy to get a license. Now, some of the tactics you talked about, they put a moratorium on accepting licenses. They also aren't necessarily easily renewing licenses. Quite a few people have been operating with expired licenses. And I know we reported on this a few episodes back that there was actually a DEA raid where over 50 people got indicted in that raid as it pertains to illegal cannabis operations. It doesn't take much to be illegal in Oklahoma. And they've been showing it since they legalized for medical cannabis. There's been in Oklahoma more indictments and arrests related to legal operations that are actually illegal than any other state. Mostly, again, racially biased. And here we're talking about Black and Indigenous populations in the way that it's approached it. But yes, OMMA, that's the Office of Medical Marijuana Authority, Oregon, Oklahoma, all these O's, Medical Marijuana Authority. They basically said, we don't know nothing about this letter. And they were not really necessarily contemplating putting a force requirement on licensees to register with the DEA. And probably because the DEA hasn't put the force requirement. The DEA says if you register. If you want to register, they're using a lot of language that normally the DEA, if it's supposed to be a requirement, they will say it's a crime or against the law. Like they're very specific. And so in this case, they've purposely been vague. And that vagueness could certainly be we want to encourage people to come through our registration. And I don't know, it could be you can just be collecting information about where you're going to go look and indict and prosecute. There's a very big chance of that, of course, with the DEA's history. Or it could literally just be it is up to you, because they have not made a differentiation between the Schedule 3 for state licensed medical operations. And basically, like, if you want to participate with the DEA licensees, you need to register with the DEA. But if you still just want to be in your state, you want to do what you're doing within the state regulations, then you don't have to necessarily register. That is the way a lot of people are reading it. To date, other states that have dual registration pathways, New York, Maryland, like they haven't necessarily made any directives to their licensees about anything related to the DEA. And as a reminder, on June 29th, there's a big hearing that a lot of people have already submitted. CRCC is one of those type of groups to be a part of this hearing with the DEA, looking at the rest of cannabis for rescheduling. But for now, medical cannabis has been rescheduled. If you're a part of a state license dynamic and you have a chance, a small window where if you want to register with the DEA, you can. And that window closes, I believe, on June 22nd. So Oklahoma is interesting because the Narcotic Bureau and dangerous drugs, it's like, first of all, weed is not a dangerous drug. We've already decided that. Second of all, where did y'all come from with your authority? Why are you thinking you can reach out to licensees that are not in your authority to oversee and tell them a rule that you haven't even worked out with the agency that does that? And is there a hierarchy? Because in some states, the medical is under the Dangerous Drugs Narcotics Bureau. They did a enforcement model, as opposed to, like in New York, they gave its own separate agency that actually is all under the government in the same way. So okay, KJ always wanted to join our last week was crazy because he always wants to join the live with us. But yeah, no, I think at this point Oklahoma is confused, and it is making the licensees more confused, but it feels a little bit like a setup. Like they want a little bit more control over who's licensed in that market, given how many licensees. And it wasn't a very in-depth like investigation into the background of the licensees, not the same way other states have had. And I think that's also why they are trying to push for registration. They think that it will uncover the bad actors based off of maybe what they put in or the like. It to me, it feels like a sting operation, not gonna lie.
Well, you done said what needed to be said. So do with that with what you want. Hopefully, I don't know. Really, I don't live on Oklahoma. I ain't ever really that never even crossed my mind, and probably won't cross my mind. But we trying to keep y'all informed, trying to keep y'all safe, and especially if you get your packs out of there, know what's happening. Because if the DA is all up in your business, it might be somebody coming along with their pack. I don't know. But what I will say is this is just another power move that's been everyone's been making since the DEA did this rescheduling. Honestly, I feel like the DEA hijacked my pre-planned cannabis She Blaze outline. Okay, I had a bunch of different episodes and deep dives and stuff I was gonna do for the people, and then they was like, "Oh, we're gonna reschedule," and it's just took the news to a whole different level. Like all this planning I was doing, child, it don't matter because the people that really was planning was the big MSO. So let's get into the good hot topic number 3, because Trulieve, child, not we should have knew they was gangster when the lady husband was going to prison. Now that was a lot of seasons ago. We talked about the Trulieve CEO, who is still their CEO, probably one of the longest CEOs of a MSO. Girl, tap yourself on the back.
Mm-hmm.
She had to sacrifice a lot, but we knew they was some gangsters and was gonna make all different types of gangster moves, honey, when they did this. And so she came, she was like, "Girl, we got to talk about Trulieve," which Florida-based Trulieve has become the first U.S. cannabis to be traded on the New York Stock Exchange. And it's
Mhm.
listed that the U.S. cannabis firms, known as a multi state operator, and their group of rapid, long suffering retail investigators have converted. Now, I don't do much stock stuff because I feel like this how the people be gambling with your money and your 401ks. But I was like, a lot of people on the internet is like, oh, well, they said that Tilray and the cannabis and the green thumbs, they got stock in them. So how they the first on anything? So somebody please, can y'all explain to me why is this such a big deal and what is it the difference been happening? Okay. And are they really the first?
You are funny because you said somebody. Does that mean me? I guess so. Well, let's talk about it. Well, one, they're the first uplisted. So the first thing is, what is uplisting? Uplisting is when you take yourself from the lower OTC or over the counter markets, which is probably where people have their stock, into the New York Stock Exchange or the NASDAQ. These are stock exchanges that have way more money circulating within them, and they have way more power and authority as to how much liquidity a company can have. And liquidity is essentially the ability for regular people to go ahead and buy their stock. When you are on the New York Stock Exchange, you can go public, for example. And going public means that anybody, me, you, anyone, the same way we have Apple shares potentially, or Sony shares, we can go and buy shares of Trulieve. Now, we still have to watch to see exactly where they're going to be listed. I believe it is the New York Stock Exchange, but that sets them up for a very big windfall of cash that is going to be infused into their business, because their stock can now be sold to the general public. And in the past, it has not been able to do that because cannabis has been federally illegal. And now, with a certain component of the market, the FDA approved marijuana products, of which there are none, and the state licensed medical operator products, which there are plenty across the country, and a big 10 are across the world, the biggest in cannabis, they are now all considered effective immediately from the order that happened in April. They're considered Schedule 3. And so doing the Schedule 3, being rescheduled, it means it's not federally illegal anymore. And that was the barrier preventing a lot of these companies from being uplisted. So that is like, I'll pause there just in case there are questions or whatever from what I have said, because I think it's important to note that it's never been about the stock exchange don't want cannabis. They maybe don't, generally, the same way they maybe don't want porn. Not everybody who is not selling illegal cannabis, not everybody is uplisted either. Sometimes it's who you know. It's definitely a privilege. You got to have a lot of people, usually they call it the street, i.e. investor Wall Street, tell people your stock is worth it to be on the New York Stock Exchange. But when people go ring the bell and they finally like get a chance to see their business listed with their little ticker, that's usually a big deal, because it's the rest of the business world saying you have a credible stock that is worth investing in.
So wait, why are they saying they're the first then?
They are the first to get uplisted. So
Okay.
whereas they've been on the over the counter, these are lower, and the Canadian Stock Exchange, they're lower stock exchange. It's the same as, if you are in the NBA, the D League versus in the NBA. Right, like it is, or minor league, you might have gotten drafted. Yes, are you an excellent baseball player? You are, but it is not like being drafted to the major leagues. The money ain't the same. The ability to have brand awareness is not the same. It is, that's the best analogy I could put. They are playing in a world where they can get stock bought. Is just the over the counter market and the cannabis, the Canadian Stock Exchange, which is not, again, as lucrative. There are some business models, some big old companies that, like, these are the Chase, JP Morgan Chase of the world. They are so snooty that they would never ever touch an OTC stock. right? OTC stock is for the folks of us who are just trying to figure out the market a bit, wanted to be in cannabis, and so utilize that, but it isn't as quote unquote proven. For me, let me just be real, it's all systemic racism, it's all exclusionary ad practices, and black and brown women owned businesses, they struggle to get listed on any of the exchanges, let alone the New York Stock Exchange. So to see a woman-led company, that is a big deal as well. But Trulieve is the first cannabis company, and they were racing Curaleaf, by the way, to get uplisted.
Well, we already did a deep dive to Curaleaf, y'all. So if y'all want to know the truth about where Curaleaf money come from and what country and who's the mobsters, watch that episode from season 6, okay? Now my next question is, Trulieve is a big MSO. It bought up all these permits and licenses and stuff that weren't just medical. They also did adult use. So what happens to their adult use licenses?
Well, that's what we've been watching. We've been seeing a couple different chess matches happen. The Goliaths are actually in a chess match against themselves. And there's a few, and they don't care about the consumer, and they really don't care about social and economic equity, small business operators at all. They're doing really big money, 8-figure, 9-figure deals, maybe even 10-figure deals behind closed doors with the federal government. And that means that they are also looking at the map of where they do have their assets held. Mostly Trulieve is a medical cannabis company, mostly. But in Arizona and Connecticut, those 2 states were one of the last states in the 2020 cycle to begin adult use, and they were able to win licenses in those states. Not a surprise. And so they do have some assets that are adult use, but if they're smart, and probably what they are doing is they are divesting those assets while they invest more in the medical component. Because as of right now, those assets are federally illegal. In fact, I would argue to get uplisted, they already did the divestment.
Yeah, so according to the article, they said that they're created a separate entity for it and that they don't have any voting power in that entity.
That's
So
chess, not checkers, and they got the lawyers to do it. But let me also let you know that those were already separate entities because of the way legalization has happened as a patchwork. Every single license in these different states is a different business that Curaleaf, all the big companies have been doing what they can to roll it up under one. Curaleaf, for example, became Curaleaf International. They probably are doing the same thing where they took all their medical operations and all those companies, divested adult use, put it under one of the companies that's only in a market through adult use, right? And then everything else is medical and under this one conglomerate company, Curaleaf International, that then can be listed on a stock exchange. Curaleaf did something different. They actually offered a reverse stock purchase where they basically started diluting their stock. It's like a 3-to-1. So for your one stock, they're basically making it 3. They give you a first right of refusal before. And this is something that you do when you're preparing to go get uplisted. I think, again, Trulieve and Curaleaf were in a race. I think what was proven probably easier for Trulieve is because they started in Florida as a medical operator. And Curaleaf certainly did start as a medical operator too. Everywhere that Trulieve went, they went mostly medical versus Curaleaf went much faster at trying to dominate the adult use market as well. And so they have a lot more to divest, a lot more deals to do. And so they were just starting the process and signaling, hey, we're getting ready for uplisting, but Trulieve beat them to the punch to be the first. I don't know if the first even matters at this point. To be real, the first always gets the mud on the face. But I do think what should be clear is that the Goliaths are playing a chess match that does not involve the smaller entities at all. And it doesn't involve adult use, really. Until you look at Vireo Health and you start to wonder, well, they're buying a lot of adult use components. What are they working on? Well, they've been a big competitor of Trulieve since the Florida days, and I think we'll have to take it to another She Blaze, of course, for me to tell you and show you more a little bit about their chess moves. But I think it's interesting to watch Goliaths move without a care in the world. They don't care about the consumer. The product is evident of that. The positioning is evident of that. And they really don't care about equity. Most of these companies even fought to again deny equity. They did both front of your face tactics and covert tactics, and we have a record of it. We got receipts of it in every single state. And one of the things that I would say, in the same way we want to boycott a Target, we should be making sure we look at where our dollars are going when we go and buy from markets, whether medical or adult use. But the way they're conspiring now with the federal government, it may be that only medical is available, in which case that is when, we know that they feel like they've got us cornered, and enforcement becomes, we're now enforcing the consumers, forcing them to buy from us instead of the underground market.
Well, they already sometimes feel forced in the dispensary when they like, well, it's an $80 ounce.
Yes.
It's like, okay, well,
they're
that's why
winning
you
on
feed your
price.
kids McDonald's every day. I don't know.
Right. You're absolutely right. They're winning on price already. They're bringing in the lowest price point. They have vertically integrated businesses in most of the states that they exist in. Not only are they able to sell from their own dispensaries, even in states where they worked out deals where, the law was supposed to prevent some of this, and like in New York, it's still happening. It's still happening. And it's because they pay a lot of money to attorneys to sit and comb through the regulations and comb through the law to find all the loopholes, to find a place to be litigious, to hold up things on one area while they move forward in another.
Child, the devil in a cloak.
It is uncloaked at this point, but so is everything else that the country is doing. I mean, we still don't know what's going on with the Epstein files, I'll say, right? Like, it's like we're talking about it, but we're not actually seeing any real movement on it. We've almost gotten desensitized to just seeing the devil uncloaked.
True. Well, things might be a little bit bigger than the Epstein files. All these things on fire, and your car don't start anymore. So good luck to us.
Yes.
And good thing we could smoke weed, right?
Thank God for cannabis. Like, for real, cannabis is the reason that we are still making it, and also still grateful at the end of the day for a privileged existence to be able to talk about the industry, help lead the industry, to be in the industry, and soon more things to be done in the industry. But it is a fight, and I don't want people to think it's all sweet or it's all sugar when we really got salt. That's been my theme.
I know that's right. Well, remember, I have put salt in my coffee by accident. It
So
was
you
just
know better than most, and it isn't cute, is it?
it
Not at
was
all.
terrible.
You took a big old gulp too. Oh
Yeah,
man, I
yeah,
forgot about that.
yeah. I didn't. I
I
won't
know.
ever. But that's why I do cane sugar now. No, I'm just kidding. But thank you guys for joining us. Please like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. We are growing. A lot is happening. We got so much on the calendar. I can't wait till next week because we are going to reveal our calendar. And make sure you follow us at she_blaze on Instagram because we got the clips. And, we be in the comments.
We of course be in the comments, as you know. I actually been trying to stay away from some of other comments, not necessarily for this. We get real people over here. Sometimes though, on other platforms, it be the bots, and it's like, you're over here talking about how somebody looked, but you got 0 pictures on your page. No. I don't think so. But I try not to get taken down the rabbit hole of the bots, because the bots are there to create stressor type commentary so you feel like you have to respond.
That's true. Well, we like good comments, 5-star ratings on Spotify and Apple, wherever you get your podcast, because She blazes there, boo.
And of
Make
course,
sure
we
you
love.
are dropping us some comments.
Yes. All right. Well, it's like looking like that time to say goodbye. This was a great episode. I think we clocked a lot of the real tea that's happening. I just also want to remind people to follow me at the Weed Head Co. It is actually going to be a month of announcements, so you want to follow along and find out where in the world is the Weed Head, because we're going to be a lot of places.
Okay, we outside. See you
We
later, girl.
outside. Bye.
Hi.